All right, all right, all right. So we are live. Happy Saturday, everyone. Hope you had a good week. If you don't know who I am, my name is Fido, and this is Tech Industry Analysis. I don't have an intro yet, but we're working on it. Either way, tonight we are going to be talking about the TikTok ban. Yes, yes, yes. According to many sources across the internet, the TikTok ban is set to go into effect tomorrow. Actually, it is 8:34 Eastern Standard Time, and according to the act that has been passed, the ban goes into effect effectively, if that time is correct, and it is in the next 4 hours. Will the application just black out? Will it suddenly disappear from your phone? We're going to see. I tend to have a specific opinion. If you've read the title of this live stream, then you would already know what that opinion is. On this live stream, what I want to do is essentially break down why I don't think that it will be banned, at least in the short term. And the big thing I think that prevents it from being banned is that it currently has it's currently by the incoming Trump administration not being vilified in the same way that it had been in the previous administration. And Trump has already had conversations with the CEO of TikTok, and they seem to be going pretty good. Those conversations really seem to allegedly have been going pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and share what I have right now, insofar as what the CEO of TikTok is saying. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Come over here, and we will share screen two. And then once we're sharing there, you guys should be able to see present, share. Oh, okay. Maybe I can't share. Oh, this is so annoying. Let's see. Share right here. You guys might get an infinite screen for a little bit, but we will put it here and then bring this over here. Okay. Ideally, you guys will be able to hear this. If you can't, please let me know. Chat participants, please let me know in the chat. Let's see. Here we go. So we're going to play this. I'm going to restart it from the beginning. Can you guys hear that? Here, let me minor technical difficulties here, folks. Settings, layouts, guest, invite, present. Yeah, I think I can't get a confirmation from anybody in the chat if you can hear that. But I'm probably just not going to share it because I don't know if you guys can hear it or not. So I'm going to take this off right now and just bring it back to me. Okay, we'll have to test. We'll have to test the sound. I don't have. I wish I had somebody on the other side helping me with some feedback. Um, but either way, so he's had essentially what he's saying is that he's had favorable conversations with the Trump administration on that TikTok is going to likely be supported by them. There's also an indication Reuters I saw said Trump said in an interview, I think it was with let me make sure here. Yeah, I think it was with NBC, if I'm not mistaken, that he's likely going to push for a 90-day extension on the 20th, which is this coming Monday. And even so, even after that deadline comes by, because of and even if Trump were to grant them an extension, the law says it's like it would be a 90-day extension. And the stipulation that I'm not so sure about how it's going to turn out one way or another is that the company has to divest. So essentially what that means is according to the act, is that they have to sell essentially the ownership of the company to somebody that the Department of Justice would, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone that the Department of Justice would determine would be valid for actually like purchasing the company. That would likely be somebody domestic. So even if that 90-day extension is granted, which it looks like it likely will be, that would leave the deadline to be somewhere in April. And with that extension, the stipulation I think will still exist that the company needs to sell essentially to somebody who's approved by the government. And that is putting TikTok, I think, in a very sticky situation. There have been a lot of people who have wanted to essentially declared their interest in being able to buy the platform. But from the reports that I've seen, they don't really seem to, or ByteDance, which is the company that owns TikTok, doesn't really seem interested, or at least allegedly doesn't seem interested in any of those offers insofar as I've been able to see. So they're in a pretty tricky situation. Do I think that they're actually going to disappear? I I don't think so. I think that there's a lot of interest in keeping the platform in the United States, and they'll probably find some creative way to, or the interests that are involved in keeping it in the United States will find a creative way to keep it here. Um, but that kind of leaves some wiggle room with tomorrow, where I think because the new administration hasn't come in. The Biden administration has said essentially that they're not going to touch it. They're going to be in a weird loophole or a weird space tomorrow because technically it will be the 19th. So if it goes away, maybe it goes away for a day, or maybe it goes away until an extension is formally granted, something like that. Um, there is really on a personal basis, I don't particularly like I don't in particular like TikTok as an application, but after reading the law, the official law's name is something called or the act, it's called um Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. I'm just going to verify that real quick. It is, yeah, Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. So the thing about that is, or the big problem with that, with the law is not I'm not so much in the camp of like, I particularly don't like TikTok. I mean, from a personal level, I don't like social media too much in general. I don't think it's like necessarily the best for us. But it's a double-edged sword at this point because we all use it. It's not a form of communication, it's how we communicate at this point. And if it wasn't for the benefits of social media, because I know it's really easy to target all the negatives, we also wouldn't really be discovering what we have with the internet. I mean, we've been able to do so much because of how we communicate. We've been able to develop businesses online, been able to share media, share art in ways that we haven't before. We've been able to create subcultures in a way that we've never have before. We've been able to share music in a way that we never have before. So there's a lot of good that comes with the bad of social media. But overall, I mean, I would say the side that I'm on is more so on thinking that it's not really the best for us when it comes to our health. But that point aside, I just think that there's also so much opportunity in the space that having it, even if it's something like TikTok, having it being taken away is not necessarily a good thing. And there's a specific articulation in the act, which I will put in the chat here so you guys can read it yourself. But there's a specific articulation in the act that I think is would be good to share. So I dropped that in the chat, and then let me share this really quick with you guys. So present, uh, stop screen. Oh, I don't know if I don't know. Was I screen sharing that whole time? I don't think you guys were seeing the screen. Present, share screen, and then we are going to share this screen. The weird thing is that I'm not getting a good indication of Screen being shared. Okay. Oh, I can't access the screen. Well, this is second stream difficulties, but it's all good. So either way, here, let me stop this stupid thing is not even really sharing. All right. So the act says a person, if the government can simply declare so I wrote this. If the government can simply declare you or your application as being run according to, like, essentially, this is what it says. So a person subject to the direction or control of a foreign person or entity described in subparagraph A or B of the act. So essentially, what this says is the act essentially lays out that if your company has any foreign interest at all, you can be subject to this act. So the government can essentially ban your application. So it's not necessarily that it says the application says a foreign adversary a bunch, right? Foreign adversaries are pretty. If you think about it, like United States foreign adversaries, that can be pretty clear cut, right? Well, who's a foreign adversary? You could go down the list. You could probably list 10 of them, right? But the thing is that it also says that anybody, um, essentially, if you're an owner of an application and if you're subject uh, to the direction or control of a foreign person or entity, you could be subject to that act. And I heard somebody who's very smart, David Sachs, talk about this in the All In podcast a while back. And essentially, what he was saying is that that language is very vague, right? So the big problem with that language is that who can be considered to be directed by a foreign person or entity, right? And that can be pointed. He mentioned in his example that it could be pointed to something like X, for example. So X is ran by Elon Musk, right? And what's considered foreign? Is it foreign in because you were born somewhere else, or because it's foreign because you live somewhere else, right? And what is exactly direction or control, right? How do you define what that is, and how a person is being influenced, right, by this foreign adversary, right? So there's a lot of ambiguity there, and I think that it provides a lot of flexibility and precedent in the future to be able to go after software applications that the government may deem fit, right? I'm not necessarily saying that they would do that, but it does open that door, and I think that that's going to create a lot of complexity because, well, it's going to disincentivize the software development. It's going to disincentivize building platforms that people make money off of, right? And I'm some people who listen to this might be against making money. I'm not one of those people, and I think that we're best suited as a society when we allow businesses to grow and thrive. And it just so happens that there are so many regulations on the books as it is that it's hard to make a business in the United States. It's hard to make a business that actually does anything significant in the United States because there's regulations for everything, right? Especially the hard stuff, the physical stuff. Like if you have a business that physically delivers something or builds something in the actual world, not just digitally, that's very very difficult. And this is in a way one of the reasons why there's been so much innovation in the software space is because that's been a space that doesn't really have that many regulations in a lot of ways because the government bodies of the world were essentially slow-footed to really be able to understand the impact of of social media, of the internet, so on and so forth, right? But I would argue that the internet has led to so many opportunities that it should be left free. It's like I said, it's how we communicate, and these platforms are how we communicate, and that's worth keeping free. That's worth keeping regulations off of it as much as possible, so that we're able to actually participate as communicators, but also able to participate in a commercial sense, right? I'm somebody who seeks to make. So here's my interest: is I'm somebody who seeks to make a living off the internet, right? And I'm sure that there's a bunch of people right now off TikTok who are doing the same thing, and like where are their businesses going to be tomorrow, right? What's going to happen there? And obviously I also believe in personal responsibility, so at the same time it's like, okay, well, you should have had a default, right? You should have expanded to a point where you're not so fragile to just like one platform goes and then you're done, right? But at the end of the day, if there's a president being able to establish that, if there's a precedent to go after software applications, then how you define how you define a person who's leading a company, like how they're being led by a foreign adversary, where it says here direction or control of a foreign person or entity. How you define that that's happening is pretty vague, right? Um, the last thing that I'll say here is that freaking uh, I don't really think there's at the end of the day, one of the key aspects of the act that I noticed is that there's going to be in order for the act to have any teeth, there has to be enforcement from the attorney general, which is a position that's appointed to by the president of the United States. I think with the previous Biden administration, you would have seen more of a pursuit towards actually giving teeth to the act. But the thing is that it doesn't seem like the Trump administration is really going to pursue giving teeth to the act, at least until at least until it stops benefiting their interests. So because of that, I don't really see it really being a huge thing in this particular administration. But that thing is on the books, man. So because of that, it could be that somebody could get power hungry and use it as a leverage to knock out a company that they don't see fit. And what do you think? Like, should the government be able to do that? Should the government be able to just close the doors on a company when based on some criteria that's been defined? And in some ways, it's not that the criteria is in a way invalid. I mean, the Supreme Court uh, let it pass. Like they said, they looked at the act. They're like, well, this is according to them constitutional, right? So it comes really to the responsibility comes back to us as the citizenry, and being like, well, what kind of business environment, what kind of laws, what kind of administration do we want to put around how we create business? What kind of legislations do we want to build around how we create business here in the United States? And yeah, I mean, it hits to a lot. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you're wanting to build a software application in the US, this is going to be something that you're going to think about, right? Like, you're especially if there's any aspect of what you do as a business has any sort of foreign ties, which is crazy because if you think about how businesses are hella multinational now, especially software is very multinational. I mean, you can have a uh, uh, but like for example, you could think about it as even like Spotify. Technically, Spotify is I think I can't remember what I think they're freaking. It's a European. I can't remember which European country it is. Um, but that where is Spotify from? Spotify is owned by it's Swedish. Yeah, so Spotify is Swedish. It is IKEA also Swedish? Yeah, okay. So Spotify is like IKEA. Just kidding. But either way, Spotify originates in Sweden. It's an application that we all use, right? All right. Well, hey, Mr. Daniel Elk, owner of well, that's a shareholder. Who is the I think they have like Spotify has like a weird structure. But let's say you point to like a couple of like the shareholders or the like leaders of Spotify, and you say, "Oh, you know what? Uh, what was I going to say? You know what? These are foreign adversaries. You label them as such. Boom. Technically, that act gives you the ability to wipe out Spotify, right? That's pretty freaking crazy. And it really just comes down to, does the attorney general want to define Spotify at that point as a foreign adversary? That's pretty crazy, right? So if you're an entrepreneur and maybe you're not based off of in Sweden, but you're based in the United States, and a big aspect of what you do in your software is to have international collaboration, or if, for example, you have a lot of international investment in your application, things can get pretty hairy pretty fast, right? So it's not evident to me that it's I think it's more it seems more to me that it gets sold as, look, we're banning this application because it's associated to a foreign adversary, China, and we want to protect your security and all this, da 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 da. But then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, maybe you get rid of TikTok and people don't like TikTok, and that's fine, right? But what kind of precedent does that leave us moving forward, right? It's not like the government is really good at establishing laws, but it's not very good at taking them away, right? So once that thing is on the books, it's kind of like a tattoo, right? It's going to take some effort to change things, right? It's going to take incentive and initiative and energy and a lot to change things especially when things are written into law. So it really is. I do think that when everything is said and done, but this is going to continue to be a legal battle. And if you're seeking to build something in the United States that is of significance, the moment you see this actually being enforced will be pretty crazy, because I mean it's happening now, right? With TikTok, it's going to. I think it will deter development in the U.S. So. Uh, that's what it is. And that's what it is. I think typically the more you secure and try to lock down a space, a commercial space, whether that's physically or in on the internet with rules and regulations, which some are necessary. But if you overburden those processes and those entities with those rules and regulations, at some point it's just going to make it super difficult to do business, and they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it here. Um, so we'll see how it goes. I know that this administration is, I would argue, is going to be much more pro business. So, in I don't think it's going to have this law is going to have teeth in the next 4 years. Um, that's my projection. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. I'm not a legal expert or anything like that. I'm not a political expert, anything like that. But that's pretty much where I think this is going to go. Um, and yeah, so if you're looking to develop your applications, I think this is a good time to think about, where are you going to do that? Like, where are you going to where are you going to base your business? Like the business that is the entity around your software. Is it going to be in the US? Is it going to be international? Because if it's going to be in the US and this act ever gets teeth behind it, then the only way that you can really operate with, especially if you start to start to be more than just like a small fry, and you actually have some significant impact with the software that you've made, then you have to be super mindful of not stepping on certain people's toes, because they can come knocking at your door. So it's just, I really think it's something that should be taken into consideration. Um, and do I like the fact that we live in an era where like our data is shared everywhere by these applications? Because I think that that's kind of like the counter argument. If it were to be like justify if it let's say that the act is actually its intent. Let's assume that the act's intent is a good intent, right? Um, if you were to say, okay, well, we're doing it because we don't want to share our citizenry's information with a foreign adversary and stuff like that. That sounds good on its face, but in my opinion, that sounds good on its face. But if you actually dig down deep, it's like, bro, if you're on the internet at all, your information's already everywhere, right? Like, it's kind of like, it's not that you shouldn't be taking measures to protect your privacy. You should, but at the end of the day, it's like, for as much as you want to do that, you're leaving breadcrumbs everywhere on the internet, it's like, it's not you almost can't use it without being publicly exposed to some extent, right? So, in my honest opinion, it's kind of like it's kind of a bad sell for like for the act, because it's like, okay, well, if your information's everywhere already, it's like, how much does a freaking like uh any foreign entity, let alone somebody who lives in the United States, have to actually work to get information on you? Probably not that hard. So I just don't think that if we were to think about how do you make things more private, you have to think about that at the infrastructure level and not so much the players at this point. It's like, how do you change an infrastructure so that there's privacy embedded within within it in the way that it operates, not trying to go top down and just striking the players. It's like, okay, well, maybe you ban this particular entity from like taking your information, but somebody else is going to do it because the infrastructure supports publicly available information. It just doesn't from a tech. It doesn't even make sense really from a technical perspective. So that's why I lean towards, okay, well, it says that, but what is it actually trying to do? And right now it's just a act. So it's really comes down to how it's enforced, who enforces it, and how it's enforced, or when it's enforced. That I think really will strike people. And as of right now, ByteDance and TikTok, they're in that loophole. This act is specifically designed, regardless of whatever happens in the future, to knock them out. So they will, in my opinion, I think that they will likely get the 90-day extension. I think that it will continue to operate at least for that 90-day period. And then I think a way out, if I were to look, the only expertise that I have really in this regard is that I code and I design like UIs and stuff, right? I'm not like, and I'm very interested in like in researching and stuff like that, but I'm not like a strategic expert in the space, right? I'm just, really even more than that, I'm like a dude with like a camera and a monitor and some lights, it's like some Gorilla Tape over there. So it's like it's nothing to it, right? But um, what was I going to say? If I were to put my 2 cents in there of what I think is going to happen is the 90-day extension is going to be granted, and then according to law, it looks like they can't get out of it unless they sell. And if that's the case, I think that they're only going to sell in a way that benefits ByteDance and whoever's behind ByteDance and TikTok. They're only going to sell in a way that benefits their interests. I don't think that they're going to sell in a way that they completely lose control of the company, and that will create some sort of loophole for them to actually like stay on. So I think that there's a very creative way. There are many creative options that will enable them to actually end up staying in the long run. And the big thing here is that whatever maneuvering that they do, it does not seem like Trump's going to enforce anything on them. He might but I think there's a lot of necessity to build also better relationships with China at this point, and this is a really good opportunity for him to mend that relationship by essentially supporting the application, supporting the success, the successful existence of the application, if you will, within the United States. So yeah, man, it's a crazy time. And just to put it on this is actually not on the show notes, but I figure it's worth talking about here. Just thinking about like all the people who are currently like have monetized their presence on TikTok. I think that is a population that is probably like aside from the law, like the aspect of it that sucks the most because I've done content creation for on and off for like what since later 2021. So no, maybe 2022. I can't remember. So something like 3 years, right? And the dates on the channel I could check there. I have a tendency to forget, but it's been a while. It's been I think at least 3 years, and it's hard, man. Like it is really really hard. So people who get it to a point where like they're actually able to get like their make their living uh off of the internet and in specific a platform like TikTok, like that's like you don't just like half-ass your way to success in content creation in media, right? Like it's like it takes a lot of effort, like a whole ton of effort. It's probably harder than anything that most people do during their like 9 to 5 jobs, right? Because there's so many little pieces, and in the beginning, it's just you, right? It's just you like setting up the lights, it's just you filming the content, it's just you creating your business strategy, it's just you selling, it's just you advertising and all that, right? So it's just like it's a huge, huge grind. And to finally get that to a point where it actually works and people actually care about you and people actually want to buy your stuff and all that, like to get that to a point where that's happening and then just get your legs chopped off from underneath you, That's pretty rough, you know? And I can imagine that there's like a lot of existential pressure right now for the businesses that operate through that platform. And I think for us as tech professionals, in the last live stream, I talked about thinking outside the box. And one of the other things about thinking outside the box that I think is really important is to widen the options. You know, like as from a strategic perspective, let's say you're a tech professional and you start selling your courses online about how to build this thing or how to learn this thing or how to learn X technology, yada yada yada. Um, and let's say you're driving a lot of the leads that go into your sales funnels or whatever through like TikTok or whatever. Um, Really the best approach there, I think that we can learn from this as strategists, as technologists, as business owners is to say, I need more options. You know, I can't just be fishing in one hole. Like I gotta be fishing in more holes. And maybe those other holes are not as well developed, but at least putting some bait out there every now and then, know what's going on so that we don't get caught off guard, you know? That is really like I think especially in just through life experience and through my time on the internet and through technology, through my corporate experience, it's always like having more options is always going to result in more confidence in everything that you do because if something one particular thing goes down, it's like not the end of the world, right? So yeah, I mean my heart goes out to all those creators because you know this world is like already so hard. Like the just trying to make it is so hard. So I mean, it just I know what that's like. So yeah, my heart goes out to you guys. Maybe some of y'all will jump over here to YouTube, and if so, welcome on board. But yeah, that is the live stream for tonight, y'all. I will be doing another one here very soon. And it's cool. It's super sick to just like grow and learn from like the different things. Like there's a lot of like little things that are going on behind the scenes that require coordination and understanding. And I'm just hella rusty from when I used to live stream like super consistently. So, but either way, I'm just super happy that you guys are on board. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers. I think we gained one subscriber from the last live stream, so this is effective. My call to action to you is I want you to take the time, a couple seconds, if this information has been valuable for you, if you actually care, um, hit the subscribe button. Get us to 1,000 subscribers. It will have taken us 3 years to get to this point, to 1,000 subscribers, but the journey has been well worth it. And somehow, some way, I always end up coming back to YouTube, regardless of how hard it gets. So, um, if you want to keep seeing the channel grow, if you want to keep seeing content like this, if you want to support tech industry analysis, not just as a stream, but as a community, comment your opinions about TikTok, what you think. Will it get banned? Will it not get banned? How long will it stay if it doesn't get banned? If it does get banned, what does that mean for us? What does this law mean for us? And so far as like software developers, what does this ad mean for us as entrepreneurs, as business people? Something to definitely think about. And I don't just actually want you to think about it. I want you to comment in the section below and let me know. Let us know so we could get that conversation rolling. Other than that, I will talk to you guys soon. I appreciate it and enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. Peace.